like ghost stories? Here's a story for you. Hello everyone, the story I'm going to tell today was sent in by Yam. Yam owns a secondhand store. Initially, Yam didn't believe in ghosts and wasn't afraid of them, until she encountered a terrifying incident after receiving some secondhand dolls to sell. That experience made Yam believe that ghosts truly exist. Yam said she runs her secondhand store in a market. She sells everything from clothing and household items to toys and collectibles. She considers her shop to be a diverse secondhand store that caters to people of all ages. Yam lives on the second floor of the shop with 2 employees. They open the shop at 9 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. Then they go upstairs to live on the second floor. Yam said from the beginning that her shop sells secondhand goods, and if something is secondhand, it must have had previous owners. People have asked Yam if she's afraid the previous owners will come back to reclaim their belongings. She would tell them that she isn't afraid of ghosts and doesn't believe in them. Yam only believes in things that can be proven scientifically. Because of this, she'd never encountered anything that people generally call a ghost or spirit. Yam had been running the secondhand shop for almost 3 years and had never seen any previous owners come back to claim their belongings, not even a single item. However, her employees often told each other ghost stories, sometimes to the point that Yam would get annoyed. If customers overheard them talking, her business would be ruined. One day, someone brought a large number of dolls to the shop. Yam arranged for her employees to wash them thoroughly at high temperatures, or what they called boiling, because it was a hot water wash. That evening, before closing the shop, Yam noticed a little girl, about 5 or 6 years old, standing in front of the store and looking inside. Yam thought the child probably wanted something in the shop and figured the child's parents would come in soon to buy something for her. Yam waited for about 10 minutes, but no guardian appeared. She then walked out of the shop to approach the child. She asked the girl who she was with and what she was doing, but the child didn't respond. The girl just kept looking into the shop. Yam looked around the area to see if anyone was looking for a lost child, but nobody seemed to be searching for anything. Yam decided to go back inside to call the police station to report the lost child. When she returned, the little girl had vanished. Suddenly, Yam felt a chill down her spine, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Although she wasn't afraid of ghosts and didn't believe in them, Yam felt strange. She hadn't heard any footsteps and hadn't seen anyone else. Yet the child had suddenly disappeared. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. That night, Yam dreamed of the little girl who had been standing in front of the shop that evening. In the dream, the girl was rummaging through things in the shop, as if searching for something. Yam approached and tried to grab the child, but as she reached out, the girl disappeared and reappeared in a different spot. This happened 4 or 5 times until Yam felt exhausted and couldn't breathe. Finally, the girl's face, which had been normal, turned frightening. The child's mouth opened wider than a normal person's and shouted, "Give me back my things!" Yam woke up with a start and couldn't fall back asleep, thinking about the dream. Around 8:30 a.m., her employees came upstairs to get Yam. They told her to come downstairs because the items on the ground floor were scattered everywhere. Yam hadn't told them about the dream yet, fearing it was a burglar. But when they checked the cash register, the money was still there. Nothing was missing. Yam felt a headache coming on. There were only 3 of them, all women. Yam called the police and had a technician install security cameras. That evening, before closing the shop, Yam saw the same little girl in front of the store again. This time the girl entered the shop. Yam felt a chill and was afraid of the girl's gaze. Wanting to know what the child was doing, Yam walked out to ask her, but just like before, the child didn't respond. Yam went back inside and told her employees to close the shop. Her employees asked Yam what she was doing at the front of the shop. Yam told them about the dream and how the little girl had been there the previous day as well, so she went to talk to her. The child wouldn't speak to Yam. The 2 employees looked puzzled and asked, "What child?" They hadn't seen Yam talking to anyone. Hearing this, Yam was shocked and took her employees to look at the security camera footage to prove she was talking to a little girl. When they looked at the monitor, they noticed something unusual. There was a dark shadow, shaped like a small person, which could have been the child, in the footage of the front of the store. The employees exchanged glances, their legs trembling, and muttered, "Creepy, creepy." Yam rewound the footage to see who she was talking to. The footage showed Yam walking out to the front of the shop, saying something, and then bending down to talk to nothing. The footage only showed Yam alone. It was impossible for her to be talking to a child who wasn't there. At that point, Yam felt that something she thought didn't exist might actually exist. She tried to reassure her employees that it was nothing, although she was worried herself. That night, before going to bed, Yam and her employees checked the shop to make sure everything was secure. Yam couldn't sleep. Thoughts of the little girl kept swirling in her head. Around midnight, she heard noises like someone rummaging through things downstairs. She listened until she was sure someone was downstairs, then woke up her employees. They were too scared to go down, so Yam decided to go down alone. Yam crept downstairs as quietly as possible. She saw things scattered all over the floor. She was scared, angry, and curious all at the same time. She followed the noise and found the source. It was the little girl from earlier, a 5 or 6-year-old girl in a pink princess dress and white shoes, rummaging through things. Yam watched secretly, feeling certain that the child wasn't human. She felt chills from her legs to her head, and her heart was pounding. The little girl suddenly stopped, as if she knew she was being watched. Yam closed her eyes tightly, wondering what to do. Should she scream for help or sneak away? When she opened her eyes, the child was gone. As Yam turned to leave, she felt a small, cold hand touch her shoulder. Yam spun around. The little girl was standing behind her. When had she gotten there? Yam now knew with absolute certainty that what she was seeing wasn't human. The little girl's face was pale, with blood on her nose and mouth. Her pink dress was torn and tattered, and her eyes were crimson red. She was staring intensely at Yam. Yam tried to compose herself and asked the girl what she wanted. The girl opened her mouth wider than normal and shouted, "Give me back my things!" just like in the dream. Yam flinched and stumbled backward, screaming for her employees. The little girl slowly collapsed. Her body seemed to deflate, and she fell to the floor, her limbs contorted. Then, she turned to Yam, opened her mouth, and moved it as if speaking, but no sound came out. Yam screamed again and ran upstairs. Her startled employees opened the door to their room. Yam ran inside and told them she'd seen a ghost. One employee quickly locked the door. Yam glanced at the clock. It was past 2 a.m. The three of them sat in silence, nobody speaking. As they sat there, they heard the sounds of someone rummaging downstairs again. They listened for almost an hour until the sounds stopped. Yam told her employees they would close the shop the next day and seek spiritual guidance. Someone who hadn't believed in ghosts now needed her employees to take her to a spirit medium. She wanted to know what the little girl wanted and how she got into their shop. Yam was certain the girl was connected to the dolls that had been delivered, which hadn't been put on display yet. The next morning, the employee who had gone out to offer alms checked the security camera footage. The footage showed only Yam talking to thin air and then running upstairs. The mess downstairs remained, as if someone had been rummaging through things. Later that morning, Yam's employees took her to a house where a spirit medium lived. As soon as Yam stepped inside, she felt a chill despite the heat outside and the lack of air conditioning inside. An elderly man with white hair greeted them with a smile. He spoke to one of Yam's employees, whom he seemed to know well, even though they hadn't seen each other in a long time. It turned out the employee had asked him for help. The spirit medium described the little girl perfectly. He said she was a vengeful spirit who had died tragically and was searching for a beloved possession. He said the object she was looking for was likely in Yam's shop. He explained how the girl's spirit could enter Yam's house. The solution was to return her belonging to her. The spirit medium himself didn't know what the object was, but he instructed Yam to meditate and ask the little girl what she wanted so that Yam could help her. After returning from the spirit medium's house, Yam dreamt she was lost and wandered into a house. She saw the little girl crying in front of the house, hugging a pink teddy bear. The teddy bear looked familiar. Then the little girl disappeared. Yam woke up and went to check the boxes of dolls that hadn't been displayed yet. She found the pink teddy bear. She didn't know how to return it to the owner, so she decided to put it on display in the front of the shop. She then meditated and told the little girl that if she wanted the teddy bear back, someone who knew her would see it and take it. Yam even said she would give it away for free if someone could prove they knew the owner. To this day, the pink teddy bear is still on display in Yam's shop. Yam still sees the little girl occasionally, sometimes briefly, sometimes as a full apparition standing in front of the shop. Yam regularly makes merit for the little girl, and that's the whole story. If you liked it, please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell to be alerted when new stories are uploaded.